They called me into the conference room at 8:03 a.m. The CEO looked straight at me and said, "You're no longer a fit for our new vision." They didn't know I'd filed that patent under my name 6 months ago. The mahogany table reflected my calm face, but underneath, my fingers traced the edge of my phone where the confirmation email sat safely archived. Victor's cologne mixed with the sterile office air as he slid the termination papers across to me. "We appreciate your contributions," he continued, "but the company is moving in a different direction." My name is Naomi Clark, and until 8:03 this morning, I was the lead mechanical engineer at Orion Verde Labs, one of Austin's most promising private renewable energy companies, 34 years old, MIT graduate, holder of 7 patents in thermal dynamics, and apparently no longer a cultural fit for the company I'd helped build from a 20-person startup to a 300-employee powerhouse. The conference room still smelled like yesterday's burnt coffee and broken promises. Victor Branson, our CEO, sat across from me with 2 HR representatives flanking him like corporate bodyguards. His Italian suit probably cost more than what most of our junior engineers made in a month. I'd watched him transform from a passionate entrepreneur into this, whatever this was. "Naomi," he said, his voice dripping with manufactured concern, "you've been an asset to Orion Verde, but as we prepare for our Series D funding round, we need team members who align with our evolving corporate culture." Evolving corporate culture. That's what they called it when they started replacing engineers with MBAs who couldn't tell a heat exchanger from a radiator. What Victor didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 6 months ago, I'd made a decision that would soon make this moment irrelevant. The organic waste-to-energy converter I'd been developing wasn't just another project gathering dust in our R&D lab. It was revolutionary, a device that could transform organic waste into electricity with an efficiency rate that made every existing technology look like stone tools. I'd spent 3 years perfecting it, 3 years of 16-hour days, missed family dinners, and relationships that crumbled because I was married to equations and prototypes. The breakthrough came during a particularly brutal all-nighter last winter. I'd been running simulations on thermal pressure modulation when I discovered a pattern everyone else had missed. By adjusting the pressure differentials in precise intervals I'd encoded in my proprietary software, the energy conversion rate jumped from the industry standard of 35% to an unprecedented 87%. That night, sitting alone in the lab at 3:45 a.m., I made a choice. I filed the patent application under my name, not Orion Verde Labs. Technically, everything I created in that lab belonged to the company. My employment contract was clear about that, but there was a loophole: work done on personal time, using personal resources, remained personal property. I'd been careful. Every critical development happened on my laptop, in my apartment. During the weekends, I was supposedly consulting for other firms. "I understand," I told Victor, keeping my voice steady. The termination letter sat between us like a chess piece waiting to be moved. "May I ask what specific aspects of my performance led to this decision?" He shifted uncomfortably. "It's not about performance, Naomi. You're brilliant, we all know that. But leadership feels you're too focused on individual projects rather than collaborative initiatives. Individual projects, like the converter that would revolutionize waste management and energy production globally. The same converter they'd been pushing me to document in the company's internal systems for months. I'd stalled, citing the need for more testing, more refinement. In reality, I was protecting what I'd built." "I see," I said, reaching for the papers. "I assume you'll want me to complete a full handover of my current projects." "That won't be necessary," Victor replied too quickly. Morrison will be taking over your responsibilities immediately." Dr. Morrison, the new VP of engineering who'd been shadowing me for weeks, asking probing questions about the converter's mechanics. He'd even tried to access my personal laptop once, claiming he needed to review some calculations. I'd politely declined and reported the incident to IT as a security concern. "And my research the converter project?" I asked, watching Victor's pupils dilate slightly. "All company property, as per your contract," he said. "We'll need your lab access cards, company laptop, and any documentation you have at home related to Orion Verde projects." This was the moment, the crossroads where I could reveal my ace or continue playing the wounded employee. I chose patience. "Of course," I said. though I'll need time to review the separation agreement with my attorney. Standard procedure, you understand. The HR reps exchanged glances. People rarely asked for legal review. They usually signed quickly, eager to escape the humiliation and secure their severance. That's unusual, Victor said. The terms are quite generous. 3 months severance, continued health benefits, and a positive reference. I appreciate that, I replied, standing. But given the sudden nature of this decision and the sensitive IP involved in my work, I'm sure you can understand my caution. The subtext hung heavy in the air. They needed my signature on their NDA. They needed me silenced before they announced the converter at next month's National Clean Energy Summit. What they didn't need was a patent dispute muddying their Series D funding. Take 48 hours, Victor said, his jaw tight. But we'll need your decision by Friday. I gathered my personal items from my desk under the watchful eye of security. 6 years of my life fit into a cardboard box: photos, awards, a cactus that had somehow survived the fluorescent wasteland of corporate America. My colleagues avoided eye contact, already treating me like a ghost. As I walked through those glass doors for the last time, my phone buzzed, a text from my patent attorney. Final approval came through this morning. Congratulations, Dr. Clark. You officially own the rights to the thermal pressure modulation system. 803M. They'd fired me at the exact moment my patent was approved. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. The 48 hours they gave me felt like 48 seconds and 48 years simultaneously. I sat in my home office. The separation agreement spread across my desk like an autopsy report. 23 pages of legal terminology designed to bury me. Page 7 was where they'd hidden the poison. Employee acknowledges that all inventions, discoveries, and intellectual property created during the term of employment, whether or not during business hours or using company resources, are the sole property of Orion Verde Labs. My lawyer, Daisy Lyle, sat across from me. Her reading glasses perched on her nose as she dissected each clause. We'd known each other since law school. I'd helped her pass physics while she'd saved me from failing constitutional law. Now she specialized in intellectual property disputes, particularly those involving inventors who'd been screwed by their employers. This is aggressive, even by tech industry standards, Daisy said, tapping her pen against the non-compete clause. They want you barred from working in renewable energy for 3 years. That's your entire field. They're scared, I said, pulling up the patent filing on my laptop. Look at the approval date. Daisy's eyes widened as she read the timestamp. 8:03 the exact minute they called you into that meeting. She leaned back, a slow smile spreading across her face. Naomi, please tell me you filed this independently. Every critical component was developed on my personal time. I confirmed. I have documentation timestamps from my home computer, receipts for materials I purchased myself, even coffee shop Wi-Fi logs showing where I was working on weekends. And the core technology. The pressure modulation algorithm is entirely mine. I wrote it in Python on my personal laptop, never touched the company servers. The base concept came from my master's thesis predating my employment by 5 years. Daisy removed her glasses, cleaning them slowly as she processed the implications. They're going to claim you used company resources for testing and development. I used the lab for basic prototyping, yes, but the breakthrough, the actual innovation that makes it work, happened in my apartment. I built a miniature test chamber in my spare bedroom. My neighbors complained about the noise. Do you have proof? I pulled out a folder thick with receipts, photos, and printouts. Every component purchased with my credit card, date-stamped photos of the home setup, even noise complaints from building management that corroborate the testing timeline. Daisy whistled low. You've been planning this. I've been protecting myself, I corrected. When Morrison started sniffing around my work 6 months ago, I knew something was coming. They wanted the converter, but they wanted it without me. Why fire you at all? Why not just wait until you documented everything in their system? I laughed, bitter and short. Because I refused to input the core algorithms into their database, claimed I was still refining them, needed more time. Victor was getting impatient. The Series D investors wanted to see the technology before committing. So they figured they'd fire you. force you to sign this, she gestured at the agreement, and then reverse engineer what you'd already built in the lab. Except they can't, not without the pressure modulation sequence. They have a shell impressive looking, but functionally useless, like having a Ferrari without an engine. Daisy stood, pacing to the window. Outside, Austin's skyline shimmered in the afternoon heat. You know what happens when you refuse to sign this? War, I said simply. They'll sue you into the ground, claim theft of trade secrets, breach of fiduciary duty, whatever they can throw at the wall. Let them... I closed the folder. Decision crystallizing. I've got $17,000 in savings, a valid patent, and a very pissed-off sense of justice. Daisy turned, studying me. You could sign it, take the severance, wait out the non-compete, then develop something new. While they profit from my work, while Victor takes credit for my breakthrough. I shook my head. I've got a better idea. I pulled up my phone, showing her an email thread. Solar Spire Innovations in Denver. I've been doing remote consulting for them on weekends all above board. Victor signed off on it last year. They're small but ambitious. More importantly, they're entering the National Clean Energy Competition. The one with the $15 million prize. And federal contracts worth 10 times that. Orion Verde is entering with my converter, or what they think is my converter. Imagine their faces when Solar Spire shows up with the real thing. Daisy sat back down, lawyer mode fully engaged. Timeline. The competition is in 2 months. Orion will need at least 3 weeks to realize their prototype doesn't work properly. Another 2 weeks of panic as they try to fix it. By then, I'll have filed the complete documentation with Solar Spire, and we'll be ready for public demonstration. They'll seek an injunction. Based on what their employment agreement versus my prior patent, my documented independent development, they'll be laughed out of court. Daisy began typing rapidly on her laptop. I'll draft your response to their separation agreement. Short and sweet, you decline their terms pending further legal review. That'll buy us time while keeping them guessing. My phone buzzed. Victor. Texting personally. Naomi, I hope you're not making this difficult. We've been more than fair. Fair. They'd stolen my work, destroyed my career, and expected me to thank them for the privilege. I thought of all the nights I'd spent in that lab, all the breakthroughs that came from my sweat and brilliance, all the credit that would go to men who couldn't even understand what I'd built. One more thing, I told Daisy. When this goes public, I want every document, every patent filing, every technical specification to have my name prominently displayed, not buried in footnotes or acknowledgments, front and center. Inventor Naomi Clark. That's unusual. Most filings just list... I know what's usual, I interrupted. This isn't about usual. This is about making sure that when Orion Verde's investors Google that $15 million technology, they see my name, not Victor's. Daisy grinned, the kind of smile that had terrified opposing counsel for years. You want to salt the earth? I want them to remember that they called me a poor fit, I said, standing to shake her hand. And I want that memory to cost them everything. As I left Daisy's office, my phone buzzed again, this time from Dr. Morrison. Naomi, I'm having trouble accessing the pressure modulation files. Could you send me your personal notes just to ensure a smooth transition? I typed back, all company materials have been returned as requested. Best of luck with the project. Then I blocked his number. The 48 hours were up, and I hadn't signed a thing. Let the war begin. The Austin Convention Center buzzed with the forced enthusiasm of 1,000 engineers pretending to network. The Southwest Renewable Energy Summit was the kind of event where deals were made over mediocre coffee and careers were launched or destroyed by PowerPoint presentations. I shouldn't have been there. My Orion Verde badge had been deactivated 2 weeks ago, but press passes were surprisingly easy to obtain when you knew the right journalists. I stood at the back of Conference Hall B, watching Victor command the stage like a televangelist selling salvation. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the crown jewel of Orion Verde's future, the green flux converter. My converter, my design, my 3 years of blood and caffeine, rebranded with their marketing department's soulless nomenclature. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor announced, his voice reverberating through the sound system. Orion Verde Labs is proud to present the future of waste-to-energy conversion. The green flux converter represents a breakthrough in thermal energy recovery. achieving unprecedented efficiency rates. The prototype gleamed under the stage lights' polished chrome and brushed steel, hiding the fact that it was essentially a very expensive paperweight. They'd replicated the exterior perfectly, down to the inlet valves I'd specified for optimal flow rates. But without my pressure modulation algorithm, they might as well have built a toaster. Our team, led by Dr. Richard Morrison, Victor continued, gesturing to where Morrison stood, trying to look brilliant, has created something truly revolutionary. We expect market deployment within 18 months. The audience applauded. Investors in the front row leaned forward, checkbooks metaphorically ready. I snapped photos with my phone, documenting every claim, every technical specification they displayed, every lie wrapped in corporate speak. Then came the demonstration. Morrison stepped forward, connecting the prototype to a waste input chamber filled with organic material. The machine hummed to life, displays lighting up with what should have been real-time conversion data. Instead, I recognized the pattern immediately. They were running a simulation, feeding pre-recorded data to the displays while the actual converter did nothing but make impressive noises. As you can see, Morrison explained, pointing to the efficiency readings, we're achieving a 72% conversion rate. 72%. They'd actually downgraded my work to make it seem more believable. My algorithm achieved 87% on a bad day. I typed rapidly on my phone, sending observations to Daisy. Every false claim was potential ammunition for later. Every technical impossibility they promised was evidence of their desperation. During the Q&A session, a venture capitalist asked the question I'd been waiting for, what's your patent protection strategy? This seems like technology competitors would want to reverse engineer. Victor's smile never wavered. Our IP portfolio is comprehensive. All core technologies are protected under patents assigned to Orion Verde Labs. We've taken every precaution to secure our innovations. That's when I noticed a slight flicker in the display, a momentary glitch that revealed the simulation beneath. Morrison saw it too, his face paling as he quickly moved to block the audience's view, while an assistant adjusted something. After the presentation, I wandered the exhibition floor, invisible in my press badge and unremarkable blazer. The Orion Verde booth drew crowds, their marketing teams spinning dreams of a cleaner future, while engineers who should have known better nodded along to technical specifications that defied physics. I stopped at a smaller booth in the corner, Solar Spire Innovations. The contrast was stark. No chrome polish, no LED displays, just a simple banner and two engineers explaining their current projects to anyone who'd listen. I'd been consulting with them for 8 months, helping optimize their solar panel efficiency. They were good people, honest, dedicated, and about to become my business partners. Sarah, I said, approaching the booth. Sarah Martinez, Solar Spire's co-founder, looked up from her laptop. Her eyes widened with recognition, then concern. Naomi, I heard about Orion. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I interrupted. I have a proposal. An hour later, we sat in a quiet corner of the convention center cafe. I'd shown Sarah the patent documentation, explained the real capabilities of the pressure modulation system, and watched her engineer's mind grasp the implications immediately. This could work, she said slowly, but Orion will come after us with everything they have. They'll try, I agreed, but they're about to have bigger problems. I pulled up my laptop, showing her a series of emails I'd received over the past week, former colleagues, speaking carefully around their NDAs, reporting strange issues with the Greenflux prototype. Morrison had called in 3 different consulting firms, each sworn to secrecy, each failing to solve the fundamental problem without my algorithm. The converter couldn't maintain stable pressure differentials. It would work for short bursts long enough for a stage demonstration, but any sustained operation caused cascading failures. They're planning a live demonstration for investors next month, I explained. Full-scale operation, third-party verification, the works. When it fails, and it will fail spectacularly, they'll be exposed. Sarah leaned back, processing, and we'll be ready with the real thing. I can have a working prototype built in 6 weeks. I know every specification by heart, and more importantly, I know what they got wrong. Their version is like a symphony missing half the notes. It might sound impressive to untrained ears, but any expert will hear the discord. What do you need from us? Partnership, not employment. I incorporate my IP into SolarSpire as a co-founder. We enter the national clean energy competition together. When we win, and we will win the technology launches under both our names. Sarah extended her hand. Welcome to SolarSpire, Dr. Clark. As we shook hands, my phone lit up with notifications. Victor had posted on LinkedIn, celebrating the overwhelming success of the GreenFlux presentation. The comments were full of congratulations, investor interest, and industry excitement. I smiled, thinking of the prototype sitting in my apartment, the real one, built with my own hands and my own genius. In 6 weeks, Orion Verde would stand before those same investors, trying to explain why their revolutionary technology had suddenly stopped working. And I'd be there, not in the audience this time, but on stage, showing the world what real innovation looked like. One condition, I told Sarah as we prepared to leave. When we file the competition entry, I want the inventor credits to be crystal clear. Every document, every presentation, every piece of marketing material shows inventor Naomi Clark, not the team at SolarSpire or our brilliant engineers, my name. Sarah nodded, understanding. They tried to erase you. They tried, I confirmed, watching Victor work the crowd, shaking hands and promising revolutions he couldn't deliver. Now I'm going to show them what erasure really looks like. The Denver air hit different at 5,000 feet thinner, cleaner, carrying the promise of new beginnings. I'd been living out of a residence inn for 3 weeks. My apartment transformed into a makeshift laboratory where the real Novacell was taking shape. Sarah had offered me space at SolarSpire's facility, but I needed privacy for this phase. Too many eyes, even friendly ones, could compromise what I was building. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced precision. Line after line of code flowing into existence. The pressure modulation algorithm wasn't just mathematics, it was poetry written in Python. Each function a stanza in an epic that would soon rewrite the renewable energy industry. The prototype sat on my dining table, surrounded by diagnostic equipment I'd purchased with my dwindling savings. Where Orion's GreenFlux was all show, Novacell was pure function, no chrome polish, no LED displays, just raw efficiency wrapped in utilitarian steel. I'd improved the original design by 20%, finding optimizations that had eluded me in Orion's sterile lab environment. Necessity, it seemed, bred innovation. Sarah called at 11:43 p.m., her voice tight with barely contained excitement. The Department of Energy just released the competition guidelines. Naomi, they've added a new category, Breakthrough Innovation in Waste Management. The prize pool doubled. $30 million, plus priority consideration for federal implementation contracts. The kind of opportunity that transformed startups into industry leaders overnight. How's our timeline? Sarah asked. I ran diagnostics on the prototype, watching the efficiency readings climb steadily. 6 days ahead of schedule, the new pressure sensors arrived this morning, military grade, capable of handling variations the original design couldn't dream of. And Orion. I minimized the diagnostic window, pulling up a folder I'd labeled Schadenfreude. Inside were screenshots from engineering forums, LinkedIn posts from increasingly panicked Orion employees, and my favorite, a job posting for a senior thermal dynamics specialist with extensive experience in pressure modulation systems, posted by Orion just 2 days ago. They're hemorrhaging talent, I reported. 3 senior engineers jumped ship last week. Morrison's been spotted at MIT, trying to poach graduate students. They know the investor demonstration is coming, and they know they're not ready. Good, Sarah's satisfaction was audible. I've been working on our presentation strategy. The DOE wants live demonstrations, third-party verification, and full technical documentation. We'll be ready for all 3. After the call, I returned to my work. The beauty of the algorithm lay in its elegance, complex enough to be irreplicable without understanding the underlying physics, simple enough to implement with standard industrial equipment. I'd spent years developing it, but the final breakthrough had come from failure. A miscalculation in pressure timing that should have caused system collapse instead revealed a harmonic resonance that amplified energy conversion. My phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then recognized the area code. Austin. Dr. Clark, This is James Witherspoon from Orion's board. I'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement. Discreet, of course, generous compensation for your expertise. I screenshotted the message, forwarding it to Daisy with a single word, evidence. The board was fracturing. When the captain starts offering lifeboats to the crew he'd thrown overboard, the ship is already sinking. I worked through the night, fueled by coffee and vindication. At 3:17 a.m., the prototype achieved 91% efficiency, 4 points higher than my best results at Orion. I documented everything. Photos and videos timestamped and backed up to 3 different cloud services. Daisy had taught me well in patent disputes. Documentation was ammunition. By dawn, Novacell was ready for scaled production. I'd created comprehensive blueprints, sourcing guides, and assembly instructions that any competent manufacturer could follow. Unlike Orion's black box approach, designed to hide their lack of understanding, my documentation was transparent. Every component, every connection, every line of code was explained in detail. Sarah arrived at 7:30 a.m. with breakfast and a contract manufacturer. Tom Nguyen owned a small precision engineering firm that had worked with SolarSpire before. He examined the prototype with the reverence of someone who understood what he was seeing. "This is elegant," he said, running his fingers along the pressure chambers. "Your thermal flow design, it's like you've made the waste want to become energy." "Can you build 5 units in 3 weeks?" Sarah asked. For this, Tom grinned. "I'll build you 50 if you need them. My team's been waiting for something meaningful to work on." We spent the morning reviewing manufacturing specifications. I insisted on being present for the first production run, needing to ensure every detail matched my vision. Tom's facility was a far cry from Orion's gleaming labs, but his team had something more valuable than expensive equipment. They had passion. That afternoon, while overseeing component assembly, I received another message, this time from Morrison himself. "Naomi, I know we didn't part on the best terms, but I'm hoping we can have a professional conversation. The industry is small, and I believe we could find a mutually beneficial arrangement. Please call me." I showed it to Sarah, who laughed out loud. "Mutually beneficial, they're desperate." "Beyond desperate," I agreed. "They've got 4 weeks until their investor demonstration, and they just realized their 72% efficiency claim was optimistic. The real number is probably closer to 40% if they can maintain stability for more than 10 minutes. The first Novacell unit came off Tom's production line at 4:26 p.m. We connected it to a test chamber filled with cafeteria waste, coffee grounds, food scraps, paper napkins. The machinery hummed to life with a sound I'd heard 1,000 times in my dreams. Displays lit up, showing real data from real energy conversion. No simulations, no pre-recorded feeds. Just physics bending to human will. 90.7% efficiency, sustained for 2 hours without fluctuation. Tom's engineers applauded. Sarah wiped away tears she'd deny later. And I stood there, watching my creation work exactly as I designed it, feeling something I hadn't experienced since that morning in Victor's conference room justice. "We should leak this," Sarah suggested. "A few photos on social media. Get people talking before the competition." "Mine." "No," I said firmly. "Let Orion continue their charade. Let them promise the world based on technology they don't understand. When we reveal Novacell at the competition, I want it to be a complete surprise. I want them sitting in the audience, watching their future evaporate." That night, I updated my LinkedIn profile. Under current position, I simply wrote, "Co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer, SolarSpire Innovations, inventor of the Novacell energy conversion system." Within an hour, I had 17 connection requests from Orion employees. I ignored them all. The email arrived at 6:12 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 days before the National Clean Energy Competition deadline. Sarah forwarded it to me with a string of exclamation points that conveyed her shock better than words could. "SolarSpire Innovations announces revolutionary Novacell technology patent holder Dr. Naomi Clark to demonstrate breakthrough at national competition." Our press release had gone live at midnight, synchronized across tech blogs, industry publications, and social media. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone vibrated continuously with notifications, but one name kept appearing, Victor Branson. 7 missed calls, 12 text messages, each more frantic than the last. I sipped my coffee, reading the press coverage on my laptop. TechCrunch had picked up the story, comparing Novacell's claimed 91% efficiency to Greenflux's 72%. The article included a particularly damning paragraph. Industry insiders report that Dr. Clark, formerly lead mechanical engineer at Orion Verde Labs, filed the core patents independently before her controversial termination. Patent records confirm Clark as the sole inventor of the pressure modulation technology that appears central to both Novacell and Orion's Greenflux converter. My phone rang again. This time, I answered. Naomi. Victor's voice had lost its corporate polish. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm drinking coffee and reading the news, I replied calmly. Exciting developments in renewable energy today. Don't you think? You know damn well what I'm talking about. That technology was developed at Orion. The patent filing says otherwise, I interrupted. Filed 6 months ago. Approved the morning you fired me. Remarkable timing, really. Silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of his realization. We can make this right, he said finally. Come back to Orion. Name your price. Senior VP position. Equity stake. Whatever you want. I want my name on my invention, I said. And according to this morning's press coverage, I already have that. You're making a mistake, Naomi. We have resources you can't imagine. Legal teams that will bury you in litigation for years. Sue me, I challenged. Please, I'd love to present my documentation in court. Every timestamp, every receipt, every email where Morrison begged for my personal notes after you'd fired me. Did you know he offered me $50,000 last week for a consultation? I have that in writing too. The sound of Victor's breathing filled the silence. Heavy, defeated. The board is meeting this afternoon, he said quietly. If you announce that Novacell uses completely different technology, unrelated to your work at Orion, we might be able to salvage our investor demonstration next week. I laughed, genuine and loud. You want me to lie? To say that the converter you've been parading around has nothing to do with my patents? It would be mutually beneficial. No, I cut him off. You had your chance to be beneficial when I was pouring my soul into that lab. When I was solving problems your entire R&D department couldn't crack. You chose poor fit instead. I hung up and blocked his number. The Solar Spire office buzzed with controlled chaos. Tom's team had delivered 5 perfect Novacell units, each tested to exhaustion and performing flawlessly. Sarah coordinated with the DOE representatives, ensuring our demonstration slot was confirmed. The media attention had attracted 3 major investors who wanted private demonstrations before the competition. CNN wants an interview, Sarah announced, waving her tablet. Tech correspondent wants to discuss the patent dispute angle. Schedule it, I decided. Full transparency, let's show them the patent documents, the development timeline, everything. That afternoon, I sat in Solar Spire's conference room, a far cry from Orion's mahogany and leather facing a camera crew. The correspondent, Marcus Chen, had done his homework. Dr. Clark, Orion Verde Labs claims you developed this technology using their resources. How do you respond? I pulled out my laptop, displaying the meticulous documentation I'd prepared. Every breakthrough happened in my apartment. Here's the prototype I built with components purchased on my personal credit card. Here are the development logs from my home computer, showing work done exclusively on weekends and evenings. But you were employed by Orion during this time. I was, and if they'd valued my contributions, I'd probably still be there. And Novacell would be Greenflux. I looked directly at the camera. But they decided I wasn't a cultural fit, so I took my culture and my patents elsewhere. What about their upcoming investor demonstration? I smiled. I wish them the best of luck with their 72% efficiency claims. The interview aired that evening. By 9 p.m., Novacell vs. Greenflux was trending on Twitter. Engineering